Ilia Topuria just vacated his belt and is moving up to lightweight in a very risky decision. I feel like there's a lot of good fights for him at 155, a lot of risk though, and he's no longer the champion. And it seems like the UFC and Dana White, they want Ilia to fight one more time before fighting for the belt, ideally Islam Makhachev. And in my opinion, I feel like they should just make that fight right now. I feel like they should do Ilia versus Islam, main event, International Fight Week, co-main event, Arman, Oliveira, 5 rounds. The winner pretty much is going to face the other winner. I feel like that makes the most sense, in my opinion. Other things, he said that he's leaving 145 because he can no longer make the weight. I don't believe that at all. I just don't think that that's true. It never really looked like that he struggled to make weight. And I just think that he's not as motivated. I mean, we have to think about it. If he beats Volk again, if they were to fight, it would be a great win for his legacy, in my opinion. But for most people, if he wins in the same fashion, they're just going to say Volk's washed, he's not the same, and then his chin is really going to be gone. He may go on a losing streak, and then the win doesn't really age that well. I feel like that's kind of the main reason he left. And he did also say that he doesn't want to fight a ton of more years. He only wants a few more fights. And if that's the case, you need a great amount of quality of the wins instead of quantity, which if he moves up to 155, I feel like there's better wins for him. You know, a Charles Oliveira win is going to look a little bit better than a Diego Lopez win. A Arman Tsarukyan win is going to look a little bit better than an Evloev win. So in that case, it does make sense, in my opinion. But again, there's a ton of risk. And who does he fight next? There's a ton of options. In my opinion, again, you got to do Topuria, Makhachev. They probably won't do that. It would likely be the second biggest fight the UFC could possibly make outside of Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones. A lot of people say that this is like Conor versus Khabib. And I feel like both of these guys are better than McGregor and Khabib, in my opinion. Even though they're both not really the same, but you have what many people think of a wrestler versus a knockout artist, and a humble guy versus a trash talker. Even though both of these guys talk trash, so the comparison isn't great. I feel like it is a more skilled fight though. And I feel like that this probably would be the biggest fight in lightweight since the Khabib and Conor fight. For Ilia, he easily has the best chance to put out Islam. I feel like out of anyone from 145 to 170, he's most likely to not just defeat Islam, but to knock him out. A lot of people complain that Islam, he only fights featherweights, which honestly, I don't agree with that at all. Because when you really think about it, the person who gave him the hardest fight was a featherweight. Now, I get it was the greatest featherweight of all time, but Ilia just knocked him out in 2 rounds. I get Islam did it on 1, but it was a much worse version of Volk. And in that case, I feel like Ilia, to be honest, is a tougher matchup for Islam than a guy like Oliveira, than a guy like Arman. You know, I think they're all around the same danger level, in my opinion, for taking his belt. And also the biggest part about this is I feel like whoever wins this not only is pound for pound number 1, because we already know Islam, he's already the pound for pound guy. If Ilia wins, he replaces Islam for the pound for pound number 1. No, it's not Jon Jones. And in terms of the GOAT conversation, if Islam is able to beat Ilia, I really think that we're going to have to start talking about him as a top 3 fighter of all time. I mean, I know that there's guys like GSP, Jon Jones. Their level of competition, granted that they definitely have more, I guess, quantity of wins. Their quality is nowhere near as good as Islam's. I get he was fighting smaller guys because I guess 3 of his wins would be against featherweights moving up. But Jon Jones, he had a massive size advantage against everyone that he fought. So I don't really understand how big of a difference it is. And if Ilia is able to win, assuming he has to fight one time before, and let's say he beats like a Charles Oliveira and then he faces Islam, I think we also have to start talking about him as a top 5 fighter. This is a really close fight. I feel like it slightly favors Islam. We've seen Ilia get held down by Bryce Mitchell. It was only for, 50 seconds, but still, I feel like that this is a fight that kind of It probably favors Islam. I probably would pick Islam if it was right now by a close decision. Similar to the first Volk fight, I feel like if Ilia wins, though, it's going to be a later rounds TKO. He's shown that he carries power. I mean, he knocked out Holloway in the third. He carries power late. And I feel like when Islam starts to get a little bit tired, his defense isn't as good. I feel like that's a likely time when Ilia would knock him out. Again, right now, I would favor probably Islam. Again, it's so close. It's a fight that we have to see, in my opinion. But moving on to the next option, Dustin Poirier. Poirier, he has one more fight. It looks like they're going to do it in the summer in Louisiana. I assume a fight night. Two of the best boxers in the UFC, guaranteed fun fight, where I think Poirier has a good shot, you know? The problem with this is it would make the matchmaking really difficult at 155, because if you do this fight and then people will say, oh, then you have to do Arman versus Oliveira, the rematch, then it's like, who's Islam going to fight? Because he can't fight at 170. I have no clue who we would fight in that scenario. I guess you could do the winner of Gaethje versus Hooker, but again, that doesn't really make sense. So that's why I'm kind of against this fight. It kind of ruins all the matchmaking and other ideas, but this is a really good fight, and Dustin does have a shot, in my opinion. He hits harder than Max and Volk, 100%. Really good boxer. I don't think he's going to be afraid to go into the pocket with Ilia. Again, if he wins this fight, it's going to be because of his durability, Dustin Poirier, which I definitely think is possible, but given his age, and this is his last fight, he's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. I do think Ilia would get it done by finish in the third round. But moving on to the next option, Charles Oliveira. Now, I know that these guys, I think, just saw each other in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Ilia has called him out multiple times. He said he wanted to fight Charles Oliveira, and this is a guaranteed fun fight. I feel like that this is one of the few fights where Ilia is going to be in danger everywhere. Same goes for the Islam fight. I think Islam could, let's say, head kick him, but even then, I don't think that that's going to happen. Charles Oliveira showed improved wrestling against, not Arman Tsarukyan. His wrestling did not look good in that fight, but against Michael Chandler, it looked great. He's going to have a massive size advantage, and I feel like everyone talks about Islam being super big, a super massive lightweight. No one talks about Charles Oliveira. He's almost the same size as Islam. I think Islam may be a little bit better or bigger, but it is close. And I do think he's going to be able to take down Ilia and control him. Now, will he be able to submit him, which I think that's his main way to win the fight? I don't know if he's going to be able to submit him. I think that with his front kicks, he's going to be able to push back Ilia, and it's going to be a little bit harder for Ilia to move forward. And I think when Ilia does push him against the fence, I think Oliveira is either going to shoot, which he'll probably have success, or he's going to clinch up. In that case, I think that Ilia is just going to rip the body. And as good as Oliveira is, I don't think that he's going to submit Ilia. So I do think Ilia would finish him late in the fight, similar to how Chandler hurt him late in the fight when he got a little bit tired. Now, if they're going to do Islam versus Oliveira, the rematch, then they probably will make Ilia versus Arman, because then Arman is going to be left without an opponent. I think he's ready to fight. Arman does have a legit shot. He has the best chance at holding down Ilia at 155, in my opinion. An even greater chance than an Islam Makhachev, in my opinion. He does have the worst chance at finishing him, though, which is kind of tough because he has to go a full 5 rounds without getting finished, knocked out, whatever. And we've seen him rocked by Silva. And again, we've seen Ilia held down by Mitchell, though, so there's that. But in terms of getting a finish, Ilia is far more likely. And if Ilia wins or Arman wins, it makes the Islam fight so much bigger, which is why I kind of want an Oliveira or Arman to fight Ilia or to fight each other, because then the Islam fight gets so much bigger. Now, in the meantime, I think the Ilia-Islam fight is already big, so I don't really see a point in waiting. But regardless, I do think Ilia would get it done. 3rd round TKO, in my opinion. Ilia Topuria, he could face the winner of Justin Gaethje and Dan Hooker. Unlikely, but if there's an early KO at UFC 313 and they're willing to do a quick turnaround, they don't take much damage, which I know people are saying how much damage they're going to take in this fight. There is a chance, both guys are chinny, that one of them could get knocked out early. And they both have a massive grappling disadvantage compared to Ilia Topuria. If the UFC doesn't really want to risk Ilia losing, I feel like that this is the fight to make because he's very likely to win this matchup. There is a fight, though, where he would have an even greater chance at winning, in my opinion. And I think that he knocks both of these guys out in the first round. Ilia Topuria versus Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett winner. Again, only possible if there's an early KO at UFC 314. Any quick turnaround. We know that both of these guys don't fight very often, so I'm sure that they'd want to get into the cage more frequently. The storyline for the Pimblett fight is going to be insane. And if they don't want to make a title fight on Jones versus Aspinall because they don't want to pay pay-per-view points for champions, they already have to pay Jon Jones so much if they make that fight. This would be a great co-main event for that fight. Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblett or Michael Chandler. And I know people hate on Pimblett. He has a chance. With how good his grappling is, he has a legit shot at winning the fight. Highly unlikely, though, because I don't think that he's going to submit Ilia Topuria. Definitely not. And he is much bigger. He's about the size as Islam, to be honest. I think that his striking is just not good at all. And I think that he has a great chin, but eventually he's going to get knocked out. His cardio isn't good either. And I think that both of these guys would get knocked out by Ilia. Pretty confident in that, but those are all my predictions for those fights and who I think that he should face next. Again, I think it's Islam Makhachev. Let me know who you want to see him fight next. And if you think that he can or will beat Islam Makhachev, that is it for me. And yeah.